let's define resistance kind of broadly in the context of how you came to think of it.
I call it resistance with a capital R. And like if we had a typewriter or a keyboard in front of me now, or you've got one there with a blank screen or a blank page in it, we would feel a force radiating off that page, a negative force trying to push you away from it, right? And it would take, that's what I call resistance. It would be the same thing as if we went out and bought an exercise bike or a treadmill and we brought it home to the house and go, oh, we're going to, and suddenly we realize we're coming up with every excuse in the world not to get on that treadmill. So resistance is this negative force of self-sabotage that will work against us anytime we try to move from a lower level to a higher level, ethically, morally, creatively. If you have an idea for a book, if you have an idea for a podcast, if you have an idea for this studio or something that you want to do, and I want to ask you about this, Rich, a voice will come into your head right immediately that will say, who are you to put this thing together? This has been done a million times and it's been done better than you ever could do or ever would do. You're too old, you're too young, you're too fat, you're too skinny, you don't have enough education, you have too much education, et cetera, et cetera. And that negative force is universal. I can tell you from the thousands of emails I've got. And not only is it universal, but it's the same voice in all of our heads. You know, it may be tailored a little bit to you or to me, but it's the same voice. And I was never aware of that. When I first started to write as a 24-year-old, resistance just kicked my ass all over the place. And I went through a lot of stuff before I finally kind of said to myself, you know what, there's a force out there that's working against me. You know, it's not just something I'm inventing. There is a real force out there, just like gravity, just like, you know, the transit of Venus across the sky. And once I could sort of give a name to it, then I could say, okay, now I have something I can deal with. How can I overcome this? Can I develop habits that will help me overcome it? Can I organize my day in such a way? Can I change my mindset in such a way? And so anyway, that's kind of my definition of resistance.
Well, the first step seems to be disassociating your identity from the resistance itself, because I think what we all kind of do is self-identify with that. That is part of who we are. That's a great way of putting it,
Rich.
Right?
In fact, I've never heard that before. That's exactly it.
Well, you have talked about, this idea that exists outside of yourself, right? If you're just thinking, well, I can't do it, this is me telling myself this, as opposed to this external force that we can, define as this pernicious entity working at odds with our effort to climb to that, elevated place. But what was it that was like the light switch for you that allowed you to kind of come to that realization? Was it just pain?
It was pain, I guess. But, I can't actually remember. There was not like a moment when I said that, or if there was to myself, oh, this is resistance. It just, just over time, I guess. I mean, there was a moment that sort of where things turned around in that way for me, but I don't think I identified a force as resistance. But what you just said, Rich, is exactly right. Of disassociating this concept of resistance, this fact of resistance, from your own identity. Like when we hear this voice in our head that says, you're not good enough, it's all been done, et cetera, what makes that so powerful against us is we think it's our own thoughts. We think, oh, that's me assessing the situation objectively, but it's not. It's this other siren voice, this force that's just out there, that's a fact of nature. And once we can say, oh, that's not me,